Courtney, welcome to the Expansion Evolution Project series. Thank you so much for being available today and talking to me. I'm so excited to hear more about your journey. Before we get started, I would love to hear a little bit what you currently do. Tell the listeners what you're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I am a high-level leadership consultant. I The reason 90% of small businesses fail in the first 5 years is because they fail to outsource and
Mm.
they believe that they can do it all. And so I help entrepreneurs begin and expand the very scary journey of outsourcing their business.
It's so funny because I just hired a VA and it was on my vision board. I knew who I wanted to hire. I knew how much she was going to charge. And I, I think I just signed the contract like 2 weeks ago. So very new. And it feels like this huge weight lifted off my shoulders because I literally was a one-person show and doing it all. And I can see how that your business would fail if you feel like you can do it all. And I think a lot of people feel like, I think it comes from a control aspect, right? Like they feel like they need to have their hands in everything, but then doesn't it like suffer your creativity too and like your just motivation and everything?
It's a combination of things. It's control, it's not feeling safe and being supported.
Mm.
It's you hire people and you don't know how to properly delegate. And so you're getting things back and they're not correct. And you're like, see, like that proves that I can't trust anyone else. Or you don't really know how to interview. And so maybe you're hiring mismatches for your brand. So there can be a lot of things. Like giving up control is definitely the number one thing, or believing you can do it better, but
Right.
or just being afraid to spend the money.
I broke my ankle in December and
Ugh.
it was like a pretty bad break. And so I basically was on the couch for almost 3 months. And I had to relinquish so much control, even like my husband driving me places where in my mind it'd be so much quicker if you take this route, but I couldn't do anything. And so it was just taught me this lesson of just trusting that the other person has it and you will get there when you'll eventually get there. So when you just said that, just that memory just popped in my mind. So you coach other coaches or just business owners in general?
I mostly work with coaches or people that have more of a spiritual type business, just
Mm,
because I also use human
I
design
love human design.
and mindset work and some of the woo-woo stuff. I definitely will work with other business owners, but I feel like there's like this aspect missing that they're not really bought into. So I have more fun working with coaches, but I've worked with all sorts of businesses.
What's your human design type?
I'm a 3-5 emotional manager.
Oh, I'm an emotional manager too. I'm a six
Yeah.
three. I love human design. I actually have this program coming out called Meet Your Edge, where it's all about like that. Where I talk about like right before you make that pivot, you're on the edge of this expansion, and it either can be it's that point of almost like it's like that point of no return, right? Because once you step over, like you've just expanded, but it's scary to be at that place. And so one of the things I do is I pull in elements of human design for people to understand themselves more and as opposed to almost like a deconditioning process. But you weren't always a coach. You were in court and like you had a corp job before that, right? What did
Yeah,
you do
I worked in
before?
corporate America for 17 years,
Wow.
working in HR. So
Mm.
I've had a ton of facets in HR. So I started out in sales, but then I became like a sales trainer and helping to onboard new people. And then from there, I was an HR manager. And so I did everything in HR. I've never done recruiting or benefits, but I don't have a big passion for either of those. And then I worked on a project team for HR. And then I worked in employee relations for 6 years.
So what did that journey look like for you from that to I want to coach and dive into all the woo stuff?
It was an interesting journey. When I was an HR manager at Target, I was working a ton of hours, like 60 hours a week, plus a 40-minute commute each way, making $50,000 a year. Like it just wasn't, I just felt like this cannot be everything. I was in my 20s. I had dated this guy in my early 20s, and I remember him talking about a working holiday visa. where you could go to New Zealand or Australia and live over there for a year. And I decided to look it up. And one literally night after probably 1 in the morning, I had gotten home from Target and just had a really crappy night at work. Because even as an HR manager, which I actually liked my HR portion of my job, but I also had to be a store manager 20 hours a week. And I did not like that part of my job. And I had gotten home from a really bad night closing and decided to just Google the working holiday visa and applied for it. And because I had my master's degree, it was free. And it said it normally took 4 to 6 weeks to get approved. And I got approved in 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I literally just, this was before I knew about manifestation or anything, but I guess my intuition was just like, you're meant to do this. And so I decided that I was going to quit my job and sell everything and move to New Zealand.
Let me talk about that before you dive in, because that's a huge pivot in itself. And I would imagine that journey led to so many breakthroughs for yourself. But were you at that point being like, I'm just done? And because you were in your 20s, like I would imagine at that point there really wasn't any big commitments other than work. Did you have any reservations? Were there like fear, or were you like, I need to get out?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't have really, I guess a little bit of fear of
Yeah.
moving to a new place. I actually had told a friend about it and she felt the same way. And so we went together.
Oh, that's so fun.
So I feel like that helped.
Yeah.
I weirdly like never had fear that I wouldn't find a job. I just assumed and I visualized in my head like, and it actually turned out way better than I imagined. Like I thought I would have to work like a crappy job over there, but I actually got a really good job that paid really well that allowed me to travel and have quite a bit of money when I was over there.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, that was like the first big pivot of my life. And I feel like at that point, my soul was like, you are not meant for corporate America. But I didn't really know that message yet because I didn't have, even though my brother's an entrepreneur, I didn't have this like clear path to entrepreneurship. I had a job in New Zealand that I really enjoyed. I worked for the New Zealand Fire Service and I worked on the HR like project management team. But which that experience in and of itself was amazing and just changed me in a lot of ways. It made me see that how much I really value freedom. But in my mind, I was still on this trajectory of corporate America is the only option.
Mm.
I ended up traveling for about 2 years total. So I lived in New Zealand for a year. I went to Europe for a while. And then by myself, I went to Asia for 3 months and
Wow.
backpacked.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
it was an experience that just allowed me to get to know myself more, get more
Mhm.
confident. But I came home from that trip and I couldn't find a job. Like I kept interviewing and literally people would say to me, how do we know that you're not just going to move to another country
Oh, wow.
again? And I was like, how do you know I'm not going to get married and have kids? Like, why
Right.
is that even a factor? So I kept being told, like, you were number two for this job. And I almost got this job at like a coal place that was going to pay 6 figures. And it was the highest paying job that I had ever had and even come close to. And honestly, I was told in the interview I got the job. And the next day they sent me an email saying that I didn't get it. And I was so devastated, but I'm honestly glad I didn't get it because if I had gotten it, I just would have become a slave to corporate again because I
Right.
wouldn't have sought out anything else. And so, because I couldn't find a job, network marketing just fell in my lap. And it was something I had heard about, but never had any interest in, but was like, I have to figure out a way to make some money. And I'm doing these Beachbody programs. So, I guess I'll sign up. And so, I signed up to be a coach and I had like pretty quick success, but honestly, I don't know, their payouts can be hard to like really make money. And so I was doing okay, but not amazing with them. And I never made enough money where it made sense, but it was very sold out to like the dream of the life that they were creating
Yeah.
for you.
Yep.
But realized I didn't love working out at home. I didn't love the product, but couldn't imagine how I could again create that on my own.
Yep.
And so a lot of Beachbody coaches left for this company called Prove It. and I left with them. And again, I had really fast success. I was actually making really good. I was making like $8,000 or $10,000 a month with them.
Wow.
So I was making good money. But again, like I just wasn't passionate about making weight loss the like sole focus of my life for the rest of my life. And so at that point, I was like, oh, I'm not passionate about this. I don't know what I need to do. And I ended up going back to corporate America full time. And it was really good in some ways for me because it helped me pick up a skill which I use in my business that I would not have had before, which is employee relations. And that's a huge part of my business now. And it also helped me see like how soul sucking and terrible it is and how much I really hated it.
That polarity creates clarity, right?
So I was there for almost 6 years. And I took a break completely from business building, from doing anything for about a year and a half. Like I just needed to not have split focus and just
Mhm.
really focused on myself and things like that. And I focused on my health and fitness, and I actually dropped a lot of weight. Then when
Mhm.
I went back to corporate America, it started to come
Mhm.
back on. And I think part of it was just my body's, this is not where you flourish.
And then when did you get into what you currently do now?
So I started my coaching business in January of 2020.
Yeah. And then so now I would imagine this is the lifestyle that you wanted to live, right?
Yeah. So then it actually started to, it was interesting. I started my business and then COVID hit. And COVID was actually a blessing because it would have been hard to, I had such a busy, full social calendar. I couldn't have imagined trying to start my business with my social calendar and working full time.
Yeah.
Like it just wouldn't have fit. And I don't think it would have taken me so long. And I don't know that I would have stayed the course or stayed motivated because it would have been like, I'm making good money at Wells Fargo. I want to go spend time with my friends. So it was good that I had all this time to work on it. And then the more I worked on my business and had clients and really got joy out of working with my clients, I just started to become honestly a little bit resentful of my corporate job, but thankful for the money that was coming in.
So you were like still having your corporate job, but also now exploring in this coaching piece. So like your needs, financial needs were being met with one job, and it's almost like your soulful needs were being met with your coaching business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when did you like completely transition over that to that?
So I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was just like the burnout from I worked a lot at my
Mhm.
corporate job and then also was working on my coaching business and not really much time to do a lot else. So I took a leave of absence from work because I just couldn't. I had also at the same time, I was working my business, I was working my job, and I had a flood in my house at the same time
Mm.
and was having to, it's basically a full-time job to work with insurance and like
Yeah.
direct contractors and all of that. And it was like my body just collapsed.
Oh, yeah.
And so in May of 2021, I took a leave of absence from work and I just didn't return from my leave of absence.
So you're basically still on this leave of absence, but now you have.
No, my leave of absence ended in June of 2021 or in December of 2021.
So what piece of advice would you have for those who are in the same situation where they like the money they're making, they worked really hard where they are in their career, they find it soul sucking, they have this desire to lean into something, but it's this doubt that's creeping in because you're crazy to leave this paycheck. What kind of advice would you have for that person?
I started to, because there was a point where I got really resentful of my job. And so I started to, instead of looking at my job as like this terrible, like soul sucking thing, it was investing in my business for me. And I was working at Wells Fargo and I was like, Wells Fargo is my biggest investor and started to just appreciate that I had that. But there was a tipping point where it was like my like soul and my happiness have to be more important than
Yes.
this paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel money can be like this limitless resource. You can always make more money. Your time is truly the only true limited resource. And so I love that perspective that you just shared. How would people find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about your coaching business? Yeah, let us know how they would find you.
Yeah, Instagram is where I hang out the most. They can find me at the Wandering Manifester. I actually have, depending on when you're listening to this, but you can book a free 30-minute call with me to just chat about outsourcing in your organization and any support that I can provide for you with
Awesome.
that. And then I also right now am speaking for totally free in masterminds and on podcasts and just really trying to, I feel like I'm delving into a niche that's not talked about in the coaching
Right.
industry. And
Hmm.
so I know it's taking a lot of education. I was talking to another coach and she says business coaches tell you all the time outsourcing is the answer. And then you're like, okay, how do I do it? And it's just quiet.
Yeah.
They're telling you they know the answer, but they don't know how to provide the solution.
Right. I found myself in a situation over a year ago. I think it was like a year, it was like a year and a half ago where I'm like, I know I want to outsource and my like social media stuff to someone, to a virtual assistant. And someone had told me about this virtual assistant that they use overseas. And so I decided to hire that person. And there was so much resistance. There was so much like, they're not understanding my vision, but I don't think I'm communicating my vision the way that it needs to be communicated. And every time they would send a graphic, I would either change it myself or I would tell them, don't worry about graphics. I'm going to do it now because it didn't resonate with my brand. And so eventually I was like, okay, this is not going to work. So I stepped away. And then I just hired someone recently who I know their work. I know people who worked with her and I love her style that she did. But yeah, I think like some people say, okay, hire, okay, boom, we'll just jump right in without realizing, is this the right fit for you? All that stuff. So I love that. I think you're right. I think more people need to have more guidance on that. I'm going to link all that stuff in the show notes about where they can find you. Thank you again for this opportunity. I loved hearing your journey and I love that you're doing what you love and you got away from a career that was like really impacting your health.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it won't be easy. Like you have to be willing to just stay the course and decide that this is the direction you want to go. I think a huge thing that can be scary when you leave a six-figure job is in the back of your mind telling yourself all the time, I can just go get another job. Just true. But as long as that is your option in the back of your mind, you'll block yourself from really being able to see the opportunity for success and stay the course through the hard because
Yeah.
you're not necessarily immediately going to be making six figures in your business or replacing your entire corporate salary. And so, are you willing to live maybe a life that's slightly less glamorous for a little while in order to get to the glamour on the other side?
And I would imagine like doing that without resistance, right? Like just being in flow with that, which is hard if you're leaving a certain lifestyle, but yeah.
But resistance is okay. It happens. Like
Right.
you just have to start to have awareness around your resistance
Mhm.
and ask yourself how you can surrender and be willing to it, even if you're a full-time job, like right now, my full-time job, I don't have it anymore. It's not a source of income, but I found other sources of income to take pressure off of
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
business. So like I rent out my extra bedroom in my house on Airbnb and I make close to $2,000 a month just doing that. So
Wow.
there's other ways that you can still bring in money that's from other
Yeah.
things.
Like how money, there's always like ways to make money, but time is truly the only limited resource. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's all about your happiness, peace, and health. Awesome. Thanks again, Courtney. I really appreciated this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.